So hi, welcome back to the Rural Project. So I'm back here in my shed at home, my garage at home. I'm going to be working on the Farmertec MS660. Quite sure where we left this. I think on the last video, or one of the previous videos, I sort of talked about the cylinder block coming loose. When I'd kind of looked into it and got home, one of the bolts that holds the cylinder on, that was all that was left of it. So the cap head had actually broken off. So that one was obviously not holding the cylinder in place, and then the other three were in place, but they were not tight. They'd loosened off. Now I'm assuming they'd loosened off because of that one losing the cap. But previously those ones had been put in with Loctite, or actually what I'd used is pretty certain I'd used Farmertec. But I've had this issue multiple times, so I've used Loctite, the blue Loctite, which is a temporary thread lock. I'd used the Farmertec permanent fastening. So for putting them in this time, got myself some red thread locker from Loctite. I've also been to the shop and bought 4 new bolts. I'm assuming the 3 that were in there are all stressed. If one had come loose and the other 3 have been holding the cylinder head down and they've been overloaded. That might be overkill, I'm not really sure, but anyway, I bought 4 new ones, so I'm going to be reassembling all of this today. I spent a fair bit of time cleaning out the threads in the body of the chainsaw. I'll just bring that over, try and get you a bit of a close-up. So the threaded holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, that are used to hold the cylinder in place, I've cleaned all of those. I've sprayed them with degreaser. I've had some cloth in there, winding it in and out, trying to get rid of any grease and debris in there, so I think they're pretty clean. I've given everything a clean with degreaser, everything around, and then just given this a light spray with a light oil, light grease, so that it will, when I first fire it up, there's going to be a little bit of lubrication in place. What I need to do now is to compress the cylinder rings and get the block put back on, and then we'll go about putting on the thread locker and securing this thing together. So the first action with this is to actually put the bolts in, because once you've put the cylinder block in, you can't actually fit these bolts in, all of them. You can't feed them from the top, you can feed them from the side. This isn't actually threaded, it's just such a tight fit, you end up kind of threading it through. I'll make sure I use the 4 new bolts. Do this little bit of jiggling around, I'll bring you back in a minute. A little bit of jiggling, you do get all 4 bolts in. It's not exactly easy. You can see there's a bit of scratching and scraping to get them in, but it does happen. It does. You can make it happen. Well, so here I thought I'd just to show you the inside of this. So you've seen on the YouTube channel how much use this has had. It's done quite a lot of milling work and a lot of just bucking logs to length. So I think it's pretty good condition. There is a tiny bit of scoring on the inside, but it's more surface, you can't feel anything. Just can't feel a thing in there. And then we look at the cylinder, look at the piston, sorry. A little bit of scoring on this side. You can't actually feel anything when you go over that. The head, I've put a bit of degreaser on this and just given it a rub clean. I'm sure I could get it a lot cleaner if I needed to, but I think that's okay. Right, let's look at putting these together. So I won't be able to do it with the camera on, but what I've done in the past, you kind of Yep, squeeze these together. I don't have the tools for it, but squeeze them together. You have to make sure there's a point where there's a little pin there, so you have to have them aligned for it to actually squeeze together. If this was rotated like that, you'd struggle to get it to actually sit in there, so it has to, you have to have the gap in the springs. You have to have that just where that little dowel is. What I do is compress the first one, get the cylinder in, press the second one, and get the cylinder all the way. Before we then come to assemble, obviously I'm going to have to put some thread locker. I'm going to put a couple of drops inside the holes, put a couple of drops on each of these bolts, and try and then get this torqued down. Look, I'll get the camera set up and see if you can watch this, but I think it's going to be one of them jobs where you're going to have to see it when it's finished, because I'll be fingers and thumbs all over the place. Okay, so what I end up using there is the back of this, just to push that spring in and allow this to start to go home. Alright, now what I need to remember now is get the Loctite in. You'll notice what I'm not doing in between the cylinder and the body. I'm not actually putting any sealant in there. I'm purely going to rely on the gasket that's in there. So that's an OEM gasket. It's a proper still gasket, because I have had to replace one. I've had to replace that several times. The ones that came with it blew out. I ended up trying to make up a gasket, like a liquid gasket. That didn't last long, so I've actually got the proper still gasket in there, and that's lasted the whole time it's been used last. Doesn't appear to have any damage on it, so I'm going to use that one again. All of these holes, they're all blind holes, so they're not through holes, so any thread locker that gets in there doesn't get out. It's not like it's going to go inside the body and mess up any of the movement. Right, and then each of these 4 bolts, putting plenty on here because I do not want this ever coming undone again. Difficult bits just trying to feed in this rubber hose, which is the air inlet. Right, that's that in. Okay, so now these 4 bolts should tighten up, because it should be sat in exactly the right position. Just gently nipping each one up. So for checking the torque on these, so they need to be tightened down to, I think it's 135 pounds for an M6 bolt. Tighten that up until So we've got the right pressure. Still not there. There. So that one's tied up to 135. Like I say, it's pretty rough, but I kind of get a feel of what does it take to move it, and that is, it's very tight. See if I can tighten this by hand. With one hand, I can't get that anymore. That's as tight as this goes. And it's too tight. Two hands to undo it. Right, let's get all the rest of these components fitted, and I'll bring you back once it's done and we'll do a quick test run in the garden. Okay, last few components going on. I've put a bit of gasket maker on the back of the exhaust there. Hopefully that's going to work. Should do. It's a high temperature gasket. Alright, last few to go in. Right, that is the MS660, all reassembled, raring to go. Tomorrow we will fire this up and give it a little test. The Farmertec MS660 has been sitting overnight, so hopefully that Loctite's had plenty of time to dry. Let's give it a fire up. Took a few pulls, but obviously the carby had been totally dried out. I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. That didn't sound like it was slowing down much on the revs, going to idle after giving it a good stab at the gas. So that's pretty strange, but we'll see what it's like once it's got the power in it. We'll give it a test this weekend with any luck.